In this video, we're going to be talking about the Orbit app. It's the app that I am developing right now that's going to be an all-encompassing Life OS app that essentially is everything in your life that you need to be productive, to understand what are the biggest metrics that I should be looking at when it comes to sleep, work, money, play, tasks, calendar, inbox, domain names, even having a community. So this is something that I've been probably for about 30 years thinking about. And then I've walked my way into personal development in the last 15 years, reading hundreds of books. And I said, why is there no app that essentially says, what are the most important things in my life? And by that, I can just name a couple. Let's talk about sleep. Let's talk about working out. Let's talk about money. Let's talk about a community. Let's talk about making sure that we actually are wishing people a happy birthday and we have everything ready about our tasks, our calendar. In other words, being productive, but also understanding that our life is either growing or dying. You're either getting better or you're not getting better. So in each of these areas, now that you have AI, they can be attached to AI saying, okay, our sleep is through the Oura Ring, which is brought in, and the Oura Ring has its own AI tracking device. Our workout can actually be attached to AI as well. So it says, okay, you're training for this marathon, you're training for this race. These are the workouts in the next 3 to 6 months that you need to do to make sure that you're on track to doing that. Now, let's look at all the subscriptions that you're tied to when it comes to money. Okay, let's eliminate that. Let's add in that. And everything comes down to Tai Lopez. Obviously, he's going through his thing right now, but he always named everything through 4 areas. And I put my own spin on it. He says, Tai Lopez says, it's health, it's wealth, health, wealth, love, and he puts it at happiness. I've already talked about it. I believe it's health. It could be wealth, or it could be, to be honest, it could just be financial freedom, financial love. I wouldn't even put it at love. I would just say this is relationships and happiness. I like the word content. What makes you content? Because happiness is a feeling, and a feeling is fleeting. So you don't want to go after feelings. You want to go after long-term success, which obviously is over time. You want to go after what actually makes you content with life, not just happy, because that's fleeting. I feel good after I eat a bagel, but that's not the best thing for my sleep, my workout, my money. And then obviously community has to do with relationships. So what is the Orbit app and why did I actually stumble upon this? First of all, obviously you have an idea of what it is when it comes to your life. But what did I start with? I started with something called an ADE. An ADE is an agentic development environment. This is a place that you can go in and essentially tell Claude, OpenAI, or any LLM what you want to build. Obviously, this is dime a dozen. This is essentially putting water into a CVS or putting candy bars into Whole Foods. It's really hard to get on the product shelf. In other words, it's a commodity. It's gasoline. It doesn't really matter if I go to Mobil, do I go to BP, do I go to Sunoco? It doesn't really matter. I just need gasoline for my car. And ADE is like that. So I not immediately, after about 3 months said, you know what, this is not the way. You know what is the way is having something on your phone that you wake up every single day and you essentially have a cockpit. I've now moved that away from the word cockpit. You could have it as a dashboard. I like the word Life OS. And your Life OS, yes, it revolves around, say, health, wealth, relationships, and content. But the way that I'm actually doing it is there's really 4 areas right now. You have an app store, and the app store is going to be areas that you're going to have, say, an e-sign area where if you want something e-signed, if you want an area where it's something called Zwift. Zwift is actually an indoor riding experience when you connect your bike to an indoor kicker. A kicker is essentially a stationary area that then you can pedal in place. And then you have this beautiful, well, it's not really beautiful, but it's an environment in which you pedal. It's a made up area, but it's literally connected to your stationary bike. It's like Peloton, but it's not expensive and it doesn't come with the monthly fees. So it's an app store. Then also the community aspect, which, to be honest, is very, very underrated. The community aspect essentially is a better area than going to X. It's a better area than going to Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. I wouldn't even put it at YouTube because YouTube is a good area. So I would rather people not go to these, but go to the community area. Hey, listen, I just did a great workout. Hey, listen, I'm looking to read books. Hey, listen, I'm looking to code this. Hey, what do you think of this idea? What do you think about this business idea? Whatever the case is, you go to the community. It's essentially high producing, high level individuals who bring intelligent conversations. It's really just a high IQ people who are just not yo-yos being told what to do. They're not on this dopamine trend. They're not on this trend of being told what to do, told what to think. They're not on the news cycle, definitely not on the news cycle. They're on the macro cycle, the macro, which is what is it long term, not short term, not short term, not short term. What are the trends that are happening long term? Obviously, you can go to the community for this. Now you have the two areas that I'm going to make the money. And this is essentially what I'm going to be using. I do triathlons. So I have an AI, which I erased it over here, but there's two areas. You have your life and then you have your work. And I call this Life OS. And I call this the workspace. The workspace is going to revolve around a CRM. The CRM is pretty basic right now, but what I want to build it out to is a very, very, not complicated, but it's going to be a minimalistic, but very complex system where you can essentially connect any website. This is going to be the hard part. And I'll break both of these down after this. But for the Life OS, right now we have obviously tasks, to-do lists, we have checklists, we have your sleep, we have your workouts. We have your money being brought in by Plaid. Plaid is an API platform that connects your bank accounts to obviously something like this. We have the Oura Ring. I want to connect the Apple device. I already have Garmin going through intervals.icu. This is all just jargon that says, hey, listen, this is important. This is what we should focus on. This is what we should be paying attention to. Because when you go into the app for today, I only want the most important things. Here's your money. Here's your sleep score. Here's your workout for the day. Here's your calendar, and here's your tasks. This is it. But most importantly, as I said on my last video, is your tasks really come down to three areas. And to be honest, you're probably not going to get to number three. And we're going to hope you go for number one. Number one is essentially deep work. Deep work is by Cal Newport. It's a book that's been talked about since probably Socrates, Plato, and all the other Socratic method people saying that deep work and sitting in silence, and before you do anything, you have to do what matters most before you do anything else. And to be honest, most people need to major in the minor. They need to major in the minor instead of minor in the majors. And when they do that, in other words, they have, and this is what I've fallen victim to, and I highly recommend, they have 10 things that they're working on and nothing gets done instead of focusing on one thing, which is the deep work, and they focus on that every single day until it's perfect. And I said, and as I'm doing this now, I said, okay, what is the most important thing? Okay, the Life OS is actually pretty good. It's connected through APIs on real data based on my Garmin data through the intervals.icu, and it pulls it in. It also goes into AI and it tells me how I'm doing and it looks at my sleep score and everything else. But my workspace is really where I need to focus on right now. Why? The workspace needs to be able to work on, say, hundreds of different businesses. It also needs to work on hundreds of different websites and just different use cases. That's the best way to say it. I don't care if you own a pet grooming business or a restaurant. I don't care if you're a babysitter or you're a dog walker. I don't care if you're a real estate agent or you paint houses for a living. I want you to be able to bring in your Life OS, which is pretty easy because most people, they have the same bank accounts, they have the same tasks, they have the same calendar, they have the same inbox, which obviously you can put your own URL and your own custom domain name into your workspace. So say it's, for me, it's icharles.com. That's my personal website. And what I want to do eventually, let's talk about the workspace. Let's focus on that for a second. And that's why I'm going to be talking about the deep work, is the workspace for me is the most important thing. So let's focus on the workspace and let's talk about making sure that this is done properly. So I've had Salesforce for 8 years. I've said this many videos about 4 or 5 developers, $50,000, upwards of $50,000. Honestly, I don't even want to look into it, between Fiverr and between Upwork and between custom and between referrals and everything else. just trying to get my custom Salesforce working for the way that I want it. And to be honest, it's really good, except the problem is it's very expensive. It doesn't talk to my website. It doesn't email anyone. If I wanted a website, that's more money. If I wanted it to email people, it would be more money. In other words, every single thing that you tack on top of it, you spend money. With the CRM needs a CMS. The CMS essentially is an area that you can produce content. We'll just say blogs for now. You could say articles, whatever you want to say. It also needs an area for email, and you can even say email management. And email management is a big term for sending out mass emails, collecting emails. It could be newsletters. It could be anything like that. These are very big items, okay? The reason being is that there's so many different people, so many different websites that to actually have a dialed in CMS, which is content management system, with the under the CRM and using the email management system, it is an extremely complex system. I took it for granted until I started building it and understanding that I can't actually build the CMS, the email management, the apps store. I couldn't it couldn't even start, etc. That's the best way to say it. I couldn't start anything else until I got this dialed in. You need to start at the contact level. The contact level essentially is the business, the client, the referral, the group of people that you're working with. If you're an extermination business and you're bringing on people, it's obviously a household, or it could be sellers or buyers. It doesn't matter. It's someone that is the foundation to which everything happens underneath there. Email, outreach, subscribe to your newsletter, them visiting your website, you actually maybe going out to a social media website and exporting the email, and then now you're retargeting them with other ad campaigns, things like that. The CRM, which I'm actually going to focus on now instead of the CMS and email management, I know I'm flying through this, is because And the reason I'm going after the workspace so much is because it is the most complicated area, knowing that I'm going to be bringing on hundreds of different people. It could be even developers, designers. It could be content creators. It could be gym owners. It could be dietitians. It could be it doesn't matter. I need this to be a template solution. So if I'm doing a template solution, I need this all obviously under the database. From the database, everything else flows. Their name, their email, their address, their phone number, whatever else information you want to collect. And it comes like this. Then it goes out to the user interface and obviously the user experience. But the problem is I was building for this first without actually having this as a unified area in which I am collecting everything into the database. And the reason being is that I can't build the app for my iPhone, the app for my desktop, the app for the browser, unless I have a unified database, because from there, everything else flows. The user experience comes from the database. In other words, I could have, in theory, and I probably will, have 3 totally different screens for people that are logged in on a browser, and that could be Chrome, Safari, Brave, and everything else. Then you have the desktop version for Apple, and then you have the iOS for Apple as well. Those are 3 different experiences, 3 different interfaces, and the only way to have a unified database without breaking everything every single time that I want to design something or add a new feature is the database. How is the architecture with the database? Because I need it to be easily called and brought up to the interface. So for me, and to be honest, there's also a back end for me. So you essentially have the admin area. So you have the back end right here, which then flows to the user, which is the front end. So you even have an extra layer, which this is the user, this is the paying user, and then this is me. So essentially, you need to have a very clean, obviously, interface. And this is a perfect example, is it goes from the database to the admin to the front end to here. Or if you want to call it, it goes from the database, which is information, to the interface. And this is, essentially what the front end is viewing. They don't care about me. They don't care about the database. They just care about what's their experience when they're actually on the application on their iPhone. Right now, what it's doing is pulling in the browser. I don't need that. I need a customized iOS experience for every single person, a customized database. What is the long term of this? Okay, so the long term of this, obviously I said a lot, but the Life OS part is pretty easy, to be honest. That's pretty straightforward. That's user input, so they can have a streak, they can have their tasks, they have their calendar, they have their inbox, they are connecting their own URL. Really, the crux of this and what I'm working on right now, and obviously this is version 1.0, is the CRM to then the CMS to then the email management, which is the workspace. And why does this matter? Because what I want is someone to log in. We can even say the iOS, you could say the desktop, or you can even say the browser. And the easiest thing, honestly, are these two, the browser and desktop. And the reason being is there needs to be an experience that when someone logs in, they feel more productive. They're putting on music that they want, which is in this browser. They're looking after what is my deep work for the day, because no one is going to be downloading something where, and I talked about it in my last video, where if I'm Google, I have to go to Google Maps, Google Docs, Google Sheets, Google Drive, Google Email, Google Search. There's so many Google apps that I have to go to. That's 6 or 7 on my desktop, or I'm sorry, on my iOS screen. If I have 6 or 7 different apps, why don't you just combine this into one super app? And that's essentially what this is, except it's tailored to someone that actually uses it. When you're at the size of Google, when you're at the size of Microsoft, or even Salesforce, which is right over there about 2 to 3 blocks away here in Midtown Manhattan, when you have millions of people and you have literally tens of thousands of use cases from enterprise all the way down to me, which is an individual level, it's nearly impossible to have such a direct relationship with the developer, which is me. That's why I need to use it. When I log in every single day, the number one thing I wake up, I look at my workout and what is my sleep score. Once I go to work, now what is my number one deep work item for the day? And then I'm going to have something that you can then go in there and put it on a timer, and that shuts off all of your applications. So essentially you log in, you say for the next 30 minutes, for the next 60 minutes, for the next 90 minutes, I'm in deep work. This is all I care about. This is the only thing I actually want to actually do. And to be honest, this is essentially the app that I'm going to be, as I'm thinking about it now, I said, where am I taking this YouTube channel? The YouTube channel is going to be going to productivity of this app, because if I need to be more productive, and for me, I'll talk about my 3 areas, I need to, and I'll be candid with, these 3 areas. We'll say health. So I'll go over mine. So if we're going to health, my sleep is priority. If you haven't read the book by Matthew Walker, highly recommended. I think it's Why We Sleep is the name of it. I read it 2 to 3 times about 6-7 years ago. It changed everything about how I thought about sleep. I thought sleep was something you do 4 hours or 7 hours, 6 hours or 10 hours. It doesn't matter. Sleep is sleep, but that's untrue. And that's literally the biggest book on sleep when it comes to data and all of the sleep studies. Is sleep is the number one priority in our life. So for health, I think this is not, I think, but I know this is the foundation to an actual good life, because if you're not healthy, it's hard to be wealthy or loving or caring or energetic or anything else. And obviously that compounds on top of that. So sleep and working out. On top of that, for me, is a triathlete. I would recommend and I would encourage everybody to put a race on the calendar. And the reason being is that once you put a race on the calendar, you then put it up publicly. And now you're making a declaration that, hey, listen, I'm actually getting involved in this 5K. I'm actually doing this 10K. I'm training for this 5-mile race, whatever. I don't care if it's a bike, if it's a swim, if it's a walk, it's for charity. It's not for charity. It's for your own selfish reasons. It doesn't really matter. But since I've actually been putting up the New York Marathon, New York half Ironman, it's a half. So it's known as a 70.3 because that's how many miles it is. So it's a New York Ironman 70.3. I've done, 4 70.3s. I did a full without the swim, and I did a bunch of sprints of Ironmans. My thing is triathlon. I love triathlon. I love that there's 3 sports. They call it 4 sports because you have nutrition. You also have transition going between all the sports. So my biggest thing is going to be triathlon. Let's move on to money. Money is the biggest thing right now. I'm looking to get married. I'm not in a relationship. So this is the biggest thing for me to be able to support my wife and then eventually support my wife and my family, God willing. So this is hugely important. So why am I talking about money? Because money is how the world works, whether we like it, it's for our will or against our will. This is how the world actually works. So you have your health, your money. So for me, what does that mean? We need to have, and as I'm saying this, we need to have a goals area. And the goals area is going to be obviously under the Life OS. This is something I'm actually thinking about right now. This would be an excellent, not only idea, this would be an excellent feature. So we'll add that in. And obviously, everyone needs to have a goal. I'm essentially talking about my goal. So essentially, you could say that you are financially free. I think there's other acronyms that they have around money. But for that, I also want to pay down any of my business debt that I've accrued through the years, which is very important to me to make sure that I'm at a clean slate. Credit is amazing. Money is amazing. I'm moving forward. I'm donating where I can. And that's very important to me as well, is donating is very, very important. You always have to give back. Obviously, it says tithing about 10%. Let's go into love. Love is obviously relationships. This is a big goal in my life, is to get married. So obviously, if I'm getting married, there has to be a task involved with so that means going on dates. Obviously, I'm utilizing myself as the example, but this is essentially what I want to bring people through maybe every single week, every single month, which says, okay, what are your goals? Okay, my goal is to run a marathon. Okay, if your goal is to run a marathon, what do you need to do? I need to focus on sleep. Okay, now you need to run, say, a mile. Then next week you run 5% more, 10% more. There's all those algorithms that a lot of coaches get you involved in. You don't want to run more than 10% every single week. You risk then injury. Know this from someone that has gotten injured many times in the past because I red light the engine and I want to do 56 miles after not getting onto the bike. And then something happens, knee, back, ankle, especially with running. So I always caution onto that. But if you're in a relationship, maybe it's writing a love letter, maybe it's spending date night, whatever the case is. This is essentially the Orbit app in a nutshell, and I'm about to get to the contentness. I don't like happiness. The entire thing is going to revolve around this, okay? So on top of this, you have a goal and you need to have a task that is associated for obviously getting married. You have to go on to dates. You have to put yourself out there. You have to understand what you want, what they want. Do they align? Things like that. I don't need any problems, there. So let's move on to content. What actually makes me content? Ironically enough, is what makes me content is actually working. What also makes me content is, and this comes only from deep thought. This doesn't come from anything else. I recommend people sitting in silence almost 10 to 15% of their day, whether that's putting their phone away, whether that is just walking somewhere, whether that's if you're driving somewhere, not having anything on and you're in deep thought, because that's when your ideas start ruminating. It's a good idea. It's not a good idea. What should I do? What should I not do? And right now, I actually just thought about this. And as I'm literally making this video in the back of my mind, I said, we should have an onboarding every single, maybe month where it says, let's do a little check-in. Let's see how we're doing when it comes to our goals in each one of these areas. How is your health? How is your finances? How is your relationships? Are you content? And honestly, out of 10 or even out of 5, you can then give a score. These are things that if I was not doing this video, I'd not be coming up with these ideas. And to be honest, I'd probably be sitting down there where the computer is and not saying any of this. Content. So what makes me happy? I would say if I put it to a percentage, and obviously this is an example, this is probably the worst thing that you can steal from somebody else. This you can borrow from someone else. Oh, that's great. I can go on a date. I need to go, say you're married, you're in a relationship, you're engaged or whatever. You could always obviously have a task when it comes to your relationship that you take from someone else. Oh, leaving love a letter, put the phone away. Spending time with the kids, whatever the case is, you can always steal these things from other people. Oh, that's a good idea. Maybe I shouldn't have coffee so late. Maybe I should stop drinking. Maybe I should only do Friday and Saturday for drinking. For me, I'm sober day, whatever. I hope it continues. But these things can be stolen. In other words, R&D, which is rip off and duplicate from someone else. But content is you personally. It's a snowflake. It's not right for everyone to take someone else's ideas. And to be honest, I've used other people's ideas. It has not worked for me, where they are the Gary Vaynerchuks where they only work. They are the Ryan Serhants where they only work. The Tony Robbins that only works. That doesn't work for me because I love working out. I love to get better in my training. I love to compete against myself in my sleep score, in my workout score. I also do like spending time with my family. And eventually I'm going to want to spend time with my wife and kids. So essentially, yes, the Sabbath is off, but also I want to get to the point where I'm traveling a little bit more. I'm also spending weekends together. So for me, I'm going to put it at a percentage, and I'm going to say 80% is work. I'm going to put 5% working out. I'm going to put probably another 15% is going to be, say, leisure or a relationship. And the reason I put it at this is when I am most happy, I am in the 85%. I always put it about 80 to 90% is what's going to give you the most. And the reason being is that my leisure and relationships are not ideal when I am not, and I don't like the word fulfilled, but not fulfilled at work. If I'm not fulfilled at work, I can't bring my best in that relationship, whether I'm out with a buddy of mine or I'm out with a coworker, I'm out with my mom, my sister, my brother. I can't bring everything. If in the back of my mind, I should have shipped this, I should have coded this, why didn't I do this? Because I was lazy or something like that. So this is what I'm building. It is a personal development app that I'm going to be using that brings you to the next level. And to be honest, it's not just personal development. It's just people that are playing at a high level that want to have a personal development area, but on top of the personal development area, they're being productive in real life. And I'll just leave you on this. I know I went over a lot, but to be productive in real life, I really break it down to, you could do, I know a lot of people, especially Cal Newport, does about 90 minutes. And you could say, this is the way that I look at it, 6 to 9 is, I focus on working out and say waking up right around there. I'm up at 5. So we'll just say 6 to 9. 9 to about 11 is, you could say, your deep work. And then, you take an hour off for silence or journaling or answering emails, whatever the case is. 12 to 3 is your, say for me, I'm filming a video, it's 3:52. So obviously it's a little after that. So this could be for marketing. This could be for sales. This could be for reading. This could be for self-improvement. Self-improvement. I don't know why I put an E, self-improvement, personal development, whatever you want to say. Obviously, this is your number one thing. If you could only get done one thing every single day, it is your deep work. I'm going to focus on that. I'm going to hammer on that every single time I talk about getting productive. There needs to be one thing. For me today, the deep work is a CRM that is unified and it is used for as many use cases as possible. And the reason being is if it is not unified or if it's not available for use cases, then it's just a personal app for myself. And that means I can't make any money. So I hope this helps. This is exactly what I want to build with Orbit. Orbit came through a huge amount of entrepreneurship starting very young. Then it moved into, I wish I can actually have my own website, my own development, my own business. Then it moved into personal development. Personal development said, oh, I could be a speaker. I should put out YouTube videos. Then that moved into faith. And now we are literally combining it all into an application that I wish I had when I was younger. But honestly, I'm glad it didn't happen before this because I would not have been ready. This is a conglomeration of personal development, of faith, of productivity, of family, of relationships, of money, of sleep, of working out, of getting better, deep work, whatever you want to say. It's going to be the super app that I had right here that Google, Apple, Microsoft, NVIDIA, Meta, all these people should have already been shipping out already. They should have put this out. I don't know why they haven't, and they will come out with it, obviously, where they do a combination of all their data, all their architecture, and it's going to be a long-term, very costly, but it's going to come out, and it will be nice, but it's not really going to be a personal development app, and that's essentially what I'm building, is a personal productivity tool that is tailored to all areas of your life, along with a community. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to stick around, obviously, leave your comments below what features you want, what ideas you have. One of the biggest that I actually thought of over the weekend is having a timer at the top that shuts off after 60, 90 minutes. But up until that point, it essentially says no notifications, nothing on your desktop, nothing on your iPhone. You can't use your phone. It essentially locks you out. And the reason being is most people, when they are bored, go right to their phone. Terrible distraction, needs to go away, go into a closet, turn it off, whatever the case is, get it away from you, put it on airplane mode. But up until then, you got Orbit. So this is the beginning. We're not even at version 1. I'm in the beginning stages of even designing and having the user experience, user interface. I can't wait to launch it. To be honest, it's going to be very exciting once it is. So have a great day. Subscribe to the video, leave your comments below. I'll talk to you guys soon.